Living just 7 miles away from the epicenter of politics, Prince George's County has a political climate change of its own. A predominantly African-American community, the majority of voters bleed the color blue. I think I can speak for all Prince Georgians. We desire to have the same things that all Americans want and should have. Better schools, economic development, police accountability, jobs, affordable housing, better roads, better health care. The list goes on. And that's where we hope to fill in the gaps. Connect the dots, inform, and educate. We, and I mean all the residents of Prince George's County, need to wake up. We need to start becoming active members in our community. Know who you're voting for and why. What bills are being introduced and what's getting passed. We hope that this show will uncover for you what's happening in the county and around the state. It's time to stop sitting on the back of the bus. It's time to wake up.
Criminal justice, police brutality, and body cams. Who are policing the police? How are Maryland public schools being funded? Do you know what the current commission is? Bills, bills, and more bills. Do you know what's really going on in Annapolis? And who's getting ready for 2022? It's time to wake up.
The Prince George's County Police Department for years have been plagued with controversy. Police accountability is a nationwide issue, and the need for systemic changes within PGPD holds true here as well. Jana, can you give us some insight on what's going on in our community?
So, we've had several different large incidents of police brutality or police misconduct or alleged police misconduct. We've had the shooting in where there was a man who was having a mental health issue and he was shot by Prince George's County Police in front of school children who were in the vicinity. We had the issue in where the young man was paralyzed during a police traffic stop. And then most recently, we've had the issue in where, unfortunately, a man lost his life while he was in police custody. I think,
And the sexual assaults.
And there were sexual assaults by various PGPD police officers or specifically municipality police officers. And I think the issue that comes in is that there's a or messaging where there should be an and. Police accountability, or you're talking negatively about the police.
Right.
When it should be, we have great police officers that are part of the Prince George's County Police Department as well as the municipalities within Prince George's County, and there is still a need for accountability on a legal and county level and probably a statewide level to ensure that all the residents are being protected at all times.
And the body cams would help that accountability because it would help us hold them accountable. So we actually see what's going on during these stops.
I agree that the body cams are a good step towards that.
Absolutely.
But I mean, if we have body cams, right, but then we can't access the body cam footage easily, or if we don't have the infrastructure to make sure that we can hold on to these body camera footages for years after the incident, to track
and that brings to a larger point because what the police department were saying that it was going to take $800,000 in order to bring the infrastructure and everything that they needed. And that's not just with the cameras, that's just like the server and everything on the back end that need to be able to save and store those video files. But luckily, the county executive, she just was able to secure $1.7 million for the budget in order to get body cameras for all Prince George's County officers.
And like you said, that cost us the cameras, the storage of that, and the personnel.
Right.
I'm sorry, I'm still going to have to say that that's a good first step, to have the body cameras and to have the infrastructure.
So what are you suggesting?
But I'm suggesting that we should have actual legal policies in place, not just policies from the Prince George's County manual for the police department, but actual legal precedent on some of these things in relation to accountability.
So for instance, there is also a bill that's being introduced right now, and they're trying to ensure that sexual assault doesn't occur within the police departments or any of those instances.
So that's the bill by Nicole Williams. It was actually heard on, I believe.
She has a hearing today?
Yeah, she has a hearing today.
Judiciary.
Yeah. So that is the bill that would codify the fact that police officers cannot have sexual relationships with people in custody or people that they assume to be in custody or will be in custody, things of that nature.
And
so That's like a first step.
Yeah, and it's very important, and we definitely need to spend more time on that, but I want to jump to the current commission because that's a very hot topic right now. It was created in 2016 to help make Maryland schools perform better. So what is the current commission and what's the holdup?
As you know, the Blueprint Bill HB 1300 and SB 1000 is the current policy part of the Kerwin bill to ensure high quality teachers, high quality and diverse teachers, early childhood programs, CTE, college readiness and also for at-risk students, and also accountability and governance.
You know, that's a good point because a lot of people are saying, well, what's the difference between the Thornton Commission and what's going to be different from now? Because we keep pouring money into the education system. Half the budget for Prince George's County goes to education. Well, so exactly.
So to be clear, we don't keep pouring money into education.
But that's
the Thornton, that's the assumption, but that's not the reality. So the Thornton Commission was never fully funded. There were issues in relation to Maryland as a state saying there was the recession, there was this, there was that. So even when we had this initial sort of commission and we had these recommendations, the state of Maryland never fully funded the Thornton Commission to bring our level of education in Maryland up.
So now we have this time if they get the money.
But I think also it was the fact that if you weren't performing well, you were punished.
Yeah, I mean, but that's still an issue in relation to this current commission. Yeah. So in relation to current commission now, which is also, that's like the nickname for it. It's the Blueprint for Education, right? Sure. And it's a comprehensive bill, slightly modeled after the Massachusetts formula for education. And it does have those 5 policy points. My concern is that the big issue for a lot of legislators, particularly in Prince George's County and in Baltimore City, is how are we going to fund Kerwin? How are we going to get the money for Kerwin? And I want everyone to understand that
the first 3 years are paid for already, though.
Until 22, and then that's when the local.
Yeah, but the local portion would have to kick in. Yes. We'd have to be 50%, and that's the huge lift for Prince George's County. And the issue that comes in is that it doesn't seem, when you look at the funding formulas, where it's equitable. And so, since it's not equitable in relation to all the counties, that is one of the main concerns. Also, I think what people need to focus on is we're focusing on how to fund Kerwin, as well as the policies in Kerwin are hand in hand. Like, if we don't get the policies correct in Kerwin to make sure that we're protecting Black and brown students all over the state of Maryland, this will be a situation where we are actually pouring money into an educational program that does not benefit all of the residents within Maryland. And Maryland has a constitutional requirement, okay, to properly educate all of the students within Maryland.
Well, it's funny that you said equity, because Delegate Gabriel Acevedo, he brought up equity and the fact that the word equity is nowhere in this bill. So for one, we want to make sure that they have, of course, diverse teachers, they bring in diverse teachers, but also the curriculum is diverse. The teachers are not racially biased. So these are some of the things that, of course, equity would bring, and making sure that in these school districts where you might have amount of Black students doing worse than their counterparts, their white counterparts. So we have to have equity measures in place to make sure that they catch up.
Exactly.
And that they're given the proper support.
And I agree with that.
Yeah, and Kerwin is such a hot topic, so let's take it to Annapolis. So what's happening in Annapolis? Let's take a look at what the delegation is fighting for and who's getting ready for 2022. Stay with us, that and much more when we come back. There are only 41 days left in the General Assembly. The Prince George's delegation went to Annapolis with high hopes and several bills. Jana, can you talk to me about Bill 407-20?
Sure. So 407-20 is a bill from Delegate Derek Davis, who is actually my delegate. And he's putting forth a repeal of the ethics bill that came on the heels of Jack Johnson, that came through at the time the county executive that came right after Jack Johnson, and that particular delegation, as well as the Prince George's County delegation, actually voted that bill in to have that, right? To have those particular restrictions on the county executive. So what the repeal would do is the initial bill was so that the county executive and any slate that the county executive was on would not be able to receive funds from developers. Davis wants to repeal that, and he's also put forth amendments to say essentially that either Prince George's County aligns with everyone else with all the other counties and where their county executives can receive funds from developers, or all the other counties align with Prince George's. Mm-hmm.
And that's fair, because of course with Angela also Brooks, you might think that that's a bill that might be racially motivated, because a lot of us...
Is it racially motivated?
Well, I don't know. Derek Davis said that the bill was for land use. Well, the initial restriction was for land use. So he's saying right now we're going to level the playing field. He wants the county executive or whomever to have the same amount of flexibility as the other counties.
And I feel like that's a valid statement in relation to what we're talking about. If you want to level the playing field or you want everyone to be on a fair footing, that's one thing. But to say that this bill was racially motivated when it came through a black county executive, it came through our Prince George's County delegation who all voted for it, and then went through our, our senators. This is a predominantly African-American county. We have a predominantly African-American representation.
So what do you think the motivation behind it is? I mean, let's just be honest.
I just don't feel like the motivation was racial. I feel like the bill was initially put in place for its purpose, to ensure that there was a level of accountability. Now, I agree with the thought of, hey, everyone should have the same thing. If Prince George's County executive cannot receive developer dollars, then no one should.
Well, they saying the word on the street is that the bill is actually being introduced to help Angela, for the gubernatorial race. So
I don't necessarily know if I would want to focus on that. I will say is that the flaw in these amendments that Derek is putting forth for the repeal of this is simply this. All of the counties have different organizations in relation to their constructs for how their county executive operates. Like Prince George's County has its particular, nuances. Howard County, Baltimore County, all these have these different nuances. So to say that we should all be on the same playing field when we don't actually all have the same thing is kind of...
I think personally we shouldn't accept money from developers, as campaign contributions. That's just what I think. I know that's a radical idea, but I think we should accept money from the people, not the developers.
I mean, I agree with that.
Okay. Yeah, and
I agree with that.
Those are some good points, but we have to move on because this is very important. The presidential election has taken center stage as voters prepare to go to the polls and elect a new leader or stay with the old. But don't take your eyes off the prize and what's happening right in your own backyard. So who's getting ready to gear up for 2022, Martin?
Well, I think Angela, of course, maybe that governor run. I'm curious to see what Aisha would do next. I think Johnny O is going to run for governor. He almost has $1 million in the bank.
These are all speculations. The person that we had that said that they're running was Peter Francho. Right. And yes. We have a person who has been in a statewide position for several years, is dealing with the finances, he's the comptroller, dealing with the finances of the whole state. That's a very strong candidate for governor. In relation to Angela also Brooks, I mean, she's homegrown. Everyone loves a good Prince Georgian. I mean, these are a lot of different people that we're assuming would do a governor's run.
Yeah, and that's for the governor's race. But I'm also hearing that Jim Rosenpep is going to run for comptroller once Peter Franchot clears up his seat. So, I mean, the playing field for Prince George's County is going to open up completely in 2022. Any further predictions, what you think, or were you hearing from, the streets?
Well, of course, Jim Rosenpep, he would probably be a good candidate. He has a tenure, he has the resources, and I'd support Jim Rosenpep. He's my senator.
Okay, so and speaking of that, it's going to open up District 21. So once everybody starts to shift and move, then now you have the two new delegates and a senator, and Jocelyn Pena. Yeah. She's slated
to that Senate seat. Hopefully she gets that Senate seat. Absolutely.
We'll I like Delegate Pina Melnick from the standpoint of she's very progressive. She stands on what she means regardless of how it falls, regardless of what it may. So I do like her as a delegate, and I would be interested to see if there was a senatorial run. I think the other part of it that I'm really kind of watching in relation to Prince George's County is who would possibly run for county executive should Angela Alsobrooks throw her hat in the ring for governor, what that would mean for the county council. We know last time Mel Franklin did or would have, the assumption was he would have made a play for county executive. I'm wondering if, having served as this at-large term, if he would run for county executive. You know, we've heard from Aisha, a Brave Boy's office, and from Aisha herself that she is not looking to run for county executive, and that she's very comfortable in her.
He wasn't thinking about running either. Right. So I mean, we see. I
can only go by what she said. Exactly. She said that she's very comfortable staying as a state's attorney, and
well, she
really
has a lot of work to do there. So we hope that she takes
expansive
the helm
actually.
She has a lot of plans.
And I hope that wasn't a Bloomberg endorsement.
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay.
But that's the conversation the other day.
So right.
Definitely. So Andrea Harrison, and I'm hearing Derek Davis is thinking. Well, Andrea Harris is thinking about running for another office. Derek Davis thinking about running for council, possibly.
Are you talking about Delegate Derek Davis running for county council?
Well, not a county council. I mean county executive. That's
county executive.
Yeah, exactly. That's a strong possibility. So how do you think that field will play out? You know, with because I hear Mel may possibly run.
I mean, if there's a. I mean, these are all extremely strong candidates. You have Mel Franklin, who, like I just said, he has served in this at-large seat, servicing all of Prince George's County. Derek Davis, while being a delegate and being on appropriations committees and things like that, he's only the district for 25.
Right.
He doesn't.
Yeah. But he does have a treasure chest.
Exactly, but he
has a large treasure chest.
Yeah, it's very large.
It does wonder.
Don't go away. We'll be right back.
But did you enunciate?
Alexa. See? Nothing.
What's Alexa's energy level?
She's got plenty of juice.
Could Alexa be in sleep mode? Could Alexa have a communication disorder?
Kids don't come with a manual. Learn the signs of communication disorders and find the professionals who can help.
We have in studio with us Mayor of District Heights, Jonathan Medlock, who took over the reins of government within his city after the conviction of the former mayor for misconduct in office. He's here today to discuss his current administration and his vision for the future of District Heights. Hello, Mr. Mayor.
How are you? Thank you very much for having me. Definitely would love to talk about the vision for the city of District Heights. First and foremost, coming in as a commissioner in 2016, working hard within the community, especially with the youth of the community, to provide them with hope and a positive future moving forward. After becoming a commissioner, I became vice mayor, and of course in 2019, in November 2019, I became the current mayor of the city of District Heights, and to continue the things that I've been doing within the city. So I'm excited about everything that's happening. We have so many great programs coming up, so many things happening, bringing cultural events and everything within the city. So I'm excited. I want to definitely answer any questions that you have.
And that's good, because I do have a question.
Absolutely.
So you did mention that you transitioned over from vice mayor to mayor. Can you tell us a little about that transition and exactly what your administration is going to do differently this around? Absolutely.
Well, there was a change of guards in a sense. My former mayor was convicted of a misdemeanor in office. It's a gross misdemeanor for us as public officials. We have to be very mindful of the decisions that we make. And once that happened, there was conviction. All this is public knowledge, of course. And as vice mayor, my job is to be ready to serve at a moment's notice. So when this happened, I stepped up to the reins and began the leadership within the city. My past mayor had did some great things over the 16 years that he was in office, but sometimes one slight indecision could change the course of history. So I was ready for this position after that conviction happened, and what I plan to do moving forward is keeping the integrity that I've always had, even as an organizer here in DC, Maryland, Virginia area, and keeping that same integrity throughout the administration, having open and transparent, real open and transparent government within the city of District Heights, and actually doing the work.
And there's nothing more important than transparency, but I do have a question. And as we were discussing earlier, there are some bills that are being introduced through Prince George's and as well as the state level. Is there anything in particular that is going to make a great impact on your community, your district?
Absolutely. I think I heard earlier you guys speaking about the Curran. You know, there's so many things that the Curran bill is going to give to our cities, especially my schools here within District Heights Elementary, to bring in the resources that are needed forever within our city. So helping wherever tax base comes in. I know they're talking about raising taxes to fund it. Yeah. You know, but I was thinking when they talk about raising taxes, Prince George's County is well taxed already.
They are, especially property taxes. Like,
especially property taxes, and we have to understand municipal tax too. You're not only paying the taxes for the Prince George's County proper, but you also have to pay a municipal tax. There's 27 municipalities here in Prince George's County, so we have to be mindful. But I'm excited about that bill. I'm wondering which way it's going to go and how it's going to really be, but I'm pushing for a great result.
And Mayor Medlock, I have a quick question for you. I'm a big advocate for criminal justice reform, and as we were talking about earlier, the body cameras and the use of body cameras in Prince George's County. Of course, I believe it's a great start, but what else do we need?
Absolutely, we need community policing. We need to really go back to community policing and policing, having police officers who are members of the community, who could absolutely relate to that. I think one of the things too, we got to think about the mental health of our officers, of the residents. We're looking at crisis intervention training.
So I have a question about the mental health portion, because it was mentioned by someone that they were advocating to get some form of training or some kind of therapist for officers they would have to go see. They wanted to do it, quite frankly, but I think like maybe biannually or something like that, it would actually help some of those officers. Do you think that any policy like that where it's just kind of like a debrief to sit down and speak with somebody about some of the instances that they've had through that year?
It's absolutely critical. Crisis intervention training is so important that the officers receive, and I would say quarterly, in order for them to really to definitely understand what they're dealing with, the trauma and the magnitude of their job. It's a lot, and I see a lot of officers, my own officers, who are dealing with that trauma of policing and doing their job, but sometimes it can be so disheartening and it can play on the psyche.
Now, you seem to be, mental health seems to be a very big issue for you. I think I remember reading somewhere that you're on like a mental health council, or can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Mental health is something that is near and dear to me. I am a commissioner of the county. I'm a human relations commissioner for Prince George's County. Okay. You represent Prince George's County to eradicate disparities, eradicate injustices, and eradicate the civil rights violations within Prince George's County by any means necessary. So mental health is a form that I've been on, working on the collaborative.
And we don't have an outpatient facility here in Prince George's County for mental health. Is there any plans to get one so that we can stop sending everybody to jail? Because that's pretty much the holding place for anything these days. Exactly.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Or get counselors in the facility, but definitely I don't think people should be incarcerated for some of the mental health.
Definitely not should be. That's why the crisis intervention training is so important. That's why building a collaborative with other organizations so that we can have those things within the county. So yeah, no one believes that those who are mental health challenged should be going to jail, but we should be treating them appropriately. Those are one things that we don't talk about. In Prince George's County, in our black community in general, are the mental health challenges that we're dealing with: anxiety, panic disorder, depression, bipolar disorder. We don't have those discussions and conversation, and that's one of the ththings that I'm building on.
So I want to put you on Front Street right before we go to any other topics, because we just talked about being a black community and stuff like that. 2020. This upcoming election, do you have any particular favorites right now, or anybody that you see is going to make an impactful change within the lives of African Americans?
Well, you know what? I've had a few conversations with a few of the candidates, actually. As a municipal official, I looked at Buttigieg. I looked at he was a mayor within his own right, a municipal official, and I had a conversation with him directly about his administration and what happened with the black community and how to improve, improve that relationship if you are indeed the president. So
Is that an endorsement for Buttigieg, or?
It is saying that all municipalities and municipal officials should have some semblance of loyalty to municipal officials. It's not necessarily an endorsement.
Well, Mr. Mayor, we thank you so much. I want to thank the Mayor of District Heights for joining us today. And now it's time for the Eyes Wide Shut with Tosin Banner.
'Tis the election season, adorned with political speeches, wrapped in hope and promise. They fill the air with the smell of "I'll kiss your donkey" for your vote. The messages from these Democratic candidates sway in the wind like rainbow eucalyptus trees. But there's no rainbow coalition here. Nevertheless, these donkey candidates beckon us to come closer to sample their fruit. I recently went undercover as a brother to do just that. Bernie Sanders' fruit was succulent and juicy. Sanders' fruit had been tilled in the soil of change, watered by the tears of students burdened with loan debts. His fruit was ripe with democratic socialism. However, some of Sanders' fruit wasn't quite ready for harvest. It appeared as if Sanders didn't give these little darlings any sunlight or water, akin to his attention span to reparations. You know, work done payments, still owed to blacks for the free labor. One would think, being of Jewish descent, Sanders would have a Holocaust kinship with blacks in this regard. The fruit from this part of Sanders' tree are bitter and not properly nurtured. I grabbed a banana from the Bloomberg stem. It was bruised and battered, similar to the way Bloomberg's redlining and stop and frisk policies left blacks and Latinos. As a former mayor of New York, Bloomberg unleashed 12 years of Big Apple terrorism. And although Bloomberg inherited this racist policy from Rudy Giuliani, Bloomberg perfected it with the kind of precision New Yorkers had never seen. The bananas from his stem should never make it to market. I wandered over to Joe Biden's orange grove. The way the sunlight bounced off of these oranges made them glisten to the naked eye. The same way Joe glistened when standing next to former President Obama. But this pales in comparison when you peel one of Biden's oranges, and you will soon discover Biden's fruit is infected with the banned substances known as lying and selective amnesia. The same way Biden can't seem to remember viciously attacking Anita Hill during the Clarence Thomas Supreme Court hearings. As senator, Biden also led the charge for the war in Iraq with the force of a hurricane, even though weapons of mass destruction were never unearthed. A warning label has been placed on all of Biden's oranges. Soak in truth before consuming. Pete Buttigieg's and Amy Klobuchar's apple orchard rests on a farm of moderate means, smack dead center of town. They use a mixture of apples to concoct their Angry Apple Orchard cider. Upon closer inspection, you'll notice their apples are rotten to the core. Rotten like the way Buttigieg treated blacks when it came to addressing racism and inequality when he was mayor of South Bend, Indiana, or the rotten core of Klobuchar's behavior when it came to the manner in which the former Minnesota prosecutor handled police brutality cases, which always led to police being found not guilty. Black Lives Matter activists have demanded stores nationwide to remove the Angry Orchard cider from all store shelves. I was unable to locate where Tom Steyer was harvesting fruit or if he had any to sample. Elizabeth Warren's sprawling valley of vineyards invites you to taste the wine on display and to swirl the fermented alcohol around in your mouth, to submerge your taste buds. Immediately, you discover the wine is infused with effervescence, a la the bubbly energy exhibited by Warren when pitching her plan for wealth redistribution. The abundance of grapes symbolize the accumulation of wealth by the 1%. Warren is quick to snatch the bottle of wine from the well-off, who are already intoxicated on affluenza. It is well documented that their DWAs have been mounting. Listen up, people. We can do better. We must and we will. Some eyes are wide shut, but all eyes are not asleep. Wake up. I'm Tosin Banner. Till next time.
In 2019, we elected the first black woman as county executive and put 11 council members in seats to fight on our behalf to create a county we could be proud of. What a lot of us seem to forget is the real power is in the people. We hope you gave you a little more knowledge to chew on about what's happening in the county. We don't pretend to know all the ins and outs, so we would love to hear from you. What are your concerns? What's happening in your community? It's time to wake up.